My name is Jodi Salvo, and I'm with Empower Tusc, which was formerly Tuscarawas County Anti-Drug Coalition. So just in case you ever hear Empower Tusc, that's who we are. A couple things. I've met Pastor Jimmy at Newcomers Town Community Action Network and a couple of you from things in the community. And what I need to say is I love this church. Just even walking in here today, it's evident that you love Jesus and you love others. So I am really blessed to be here today because I have to say I'm a social worker by training. I'm in this world of substance use prevention, but at the end of the day and foremost, I'm a Christian. And sometimes I'm like, why does God have me in this space? And I will say what he's placed on my heart is the church is the answer. Jesus is the answer to all the social issues you have. So as Empower Tusc, the work we do is really to prevent youth substance use. And if you have not been touched by addiction, it's rampant. It continues to grow in our communities. Ohio has been super hard hit since, the 2015 when we kind of really saw the opioid epidemic coming in. But I will tell you, the pandemic has not been our friend. So we now have more isolation. You can tell we're just not back to where we were, but that's caused a lot more mental health issues. And I don't think you can ever separate addiction and mental health issues. So depression, anxiety, all that just kind of gets rolled up into one. And if people have not been around a person struggling with addiction, or if you haven't struggled with addiction yourself, I don't think anyone understands how quickly it can happen. Whatever the reason someone first initiates, tries, is prescribed a medication from a physician, initially it's your brain likes it or your doesn't. And a lot of times your brain, if it likes it, it might be self-medicating or it's getting pleasure because substances release dopamine, which makes us feel better. So I'm just kind of giving you a 101 that addiction can happen to anyone. And the reason I'm here speaking today is we're really seeing increased addiction. And a lot of the work that we do in the community is to help reduce stigma so people can get the help they need. And that we can understand people struggling and we can reach out. And I know you're a church that reaches out to other people, so I think it's important for you to understand how mental health and addiction can really cause community problems and the climate we're in right now. So what's going on right now is we're having young people initiate some substances younger than they have ever had before. So I'm in my 50s. And back then, there might have been students using marijuana, probably alcohol, cigarette smoking, but it's not like it is today. Probably around 2017, 2018, we really started seeing vaping devices. So at that time, our kids really felt, they did not like cigarette smoking. They had a lot of education about it, but they were kind of sold a bill of goods that vaping was not nicotine, it was safer than, it was better than. So we had a whole bunch of young people starting initiating with vaping devices, and parents and adults weren't really aware of what was going on. And as we're moving forward in time, kids are very much addicted to their vaping devices. If you work in the schools, if you know Mr. Peoples, if you want to talk to anyone, it's an issue, not here just in Newcomers Town, but across the United States. The issue, though, is our kids are so addicted to that vaping device. Where nicotine vapes are there, marijuana is as well. So we did not have kids initiating nicotine at such young ages, average age about 5th grade on vaping devices.
Wow.
Not average, that's age of initiation. So I'm not saying all of our 5th graders are vaping, but we have it in our late elementary, we definitely have it in middle schools. But where those devices are, marijuana oils are available as well. So now we have young people initiating marijuana use at a really young age. The problem with that is when they vape marijuana on those devices, the potency of the marijuana. The THC is much higher than it was when someone was using a smoke joint. So we have young kids smoking marijuana, maybe in early high school, late middle school. And because it's more potent, the chance for addiction is much higher. This is how addiction works. The earlier you use, the greater the chance that you're going to struggle with addiction. So in our world, if we can prevent people from using substances till they're 21, their chance of addiction is actually pretty low unless they had a family history. But if we can delay that onset, kids can get to the age of 21 and realize, I don't need substances to meet a need, to make me feel socially okay, to self-medicate or whatever, because I've already learned other skills to do that. So the reason I'm here today is I want to talk a little bit about marijuana and why the church is really important on this issue. But I'm just going to give you a couple other things to know in Tuscarawas County that's super helpful. First of all, if you guys see the silhouettes that'll be up, do you guys remember those in Newcomers Town the last couple of years? One of the effort we do is we place these silhouettes up in the county, and they'll be coming up August 31st, and that's International Overdose Awareness Day. We had 9 deaths in the last 6 months in Tuscarawas County, but we had over 90 overdoses. So I just want to put this up there is when you see those silhouettes, it's to help people understand addiction is real, it's taking lives, and it's changing lives. So the reason we do this particular campaign is to help people understand if they're not touched by addiction, that we do need to care as a church and as community members around this issue. And when you see those silhouettes, there's a yard sign that's beside it, and it has a number for everyone to get help. So I always want people to know, in Tuscarawas County, we have a Hope Line number, and it's a 1 number someone can call. It goes to one person, and her only job is to make sure people get the care they need. Whether it's inpatient, whether it's support, whatever it is. Because a lot of times, if you're ready to get help, there's a really tiny window and you need someone to help you get there. Or if you're a family member, it's really helpful to have 1 number, and they're not going to bounce you all over the place and say, call here, try this and do that. So even to a church, if you had someone coming in and they're saying, hey, I'm ready to get help, you can call that number. So that's the reason we do Project Hope, and it also helps people understand we have a community need. So I kind of wanted to let you know that. So, Trevor, would you mind, do I have okay. I'm going to go in to talk a little bit about the marijuana issue, and I don't want to be too long, but I want you all to understand this issue. So the reason I'm speaking to churches on this issue, and I know you guys have participated in Hope Sunday in the past, we will be sending a video to churches in September to further explain this issue. But we live in a state where our government says, church, come on in, okay? And we were having a conversation this morning. Our governor actually gives me money every year to do that Hope Sunday, which is a video that goes to churches to present issues and to say, church, come on, let's deal with this issue. So this is the one that we're going to be spending our government dollars on to talk to churches, because you have seen in our world right now all these issues that come before us that might not be pro-family, it might not be pro-Christ, it might not be what we as Christians believe in or is good for our communities. This particular issue of marijuana legalization has the potential to really wreck our state, okay? So the issue with it is there's a lot of messaging on why marijuana is the solution to all our problems, okay? And you hear it every day, but I will tell you the cannabis industry is the same industry that the tobacco industry was. So the CEOs on the cannabis industry right now were the CEOs on Big Tobacco, on Altria, and we also have OxyContin, the CEO of our opioid epidemic, who who is now on the marijuana industry, okay? So we have a for-profit industry of addiction, which is the cannabis industry, which has the same players as the alcohol and tobacco industry. So when they're saying these messages, there's a whole bunch of sound bites that we continue to hear because it's a billion-dollar industry with the ability to put out a whole bunch of sound bites. And I will tell you, I work at a state level. They do not have the research to back their sound bites, and we do. There's a ton of emerging information. So what I want to do is kind of just give you a why you need to understand on this issue and what I really feel God's people needs to do in response to that, really to protect our communities. So I'm going to stand down here just so I can see this. So when we hear things about marijuana, we hear about it's safer than alcohol, and I'll give you what has done more damage by now. I'll give you alcohol has definitely done more damage in our community. So it's not that I'm going to fight that. It's just when we get into a situation where we're saying this is better than this, is better than this better for our society as a whole? Okay, so I think we just need to remember safer than is not a great argument. We'll hear about social justice. We'll hear about, hey, if we legalize marijuana, we're not going to incarcerate people, that war on drugs didn't work. But what I need you to know, in Ohio, we have been decriminalized around marijuana forever. There is not one single person in our county jail on marijuana charges. If you're trafficking, that's a little bit different, and youth can get in trouble, okay? But we're decriminalized, and to be honest, since the Farm Bill of 2018, I hate to say this, there's not much that happens around marijuana because our state labs are full of other drugs, fentanyl and methamphetamines and stuff like that. So that, again, is a really faulty argument. And they will also say, hey, this is good for the Black and brown communities. I will tell you what, you will not see, if we recreationally legalize, you will not see dispensaries in Dover's, you won't see them in Jackson, you will not see them in Hudson. You're going to see them in communities that are more impoverished, okay? So when they say it's better, if you go to a state that is recreationally legalized, in fact, I was just up in Michigan, short of it being around the college, they're not nice communities. They're in the communities that have alcohol, bail bond. Those are the communities they're in. And you know why? Because communities that have good protective factors have already learned that when you put in dispensaries, recreational, you bring in crime. The black market thrives. So people that study this at all realize not in my community, not that people won't be using it, they're going to be driving to communities that are going to be putting them more at risk. So I do have to say kudos to Newcomerstown. You have a great mayor, you have a great city council, so they're kind of on top of that. So I just want to say Newcomerstown does a great job. However, we all need to know about this because when it comes to voting on this next year, we're only as safe as the county or the community next door to us. So Newcomerstown might be safe in this one particular area, but if we have Coshocton, we have the Twin City area, so things you need to know. You hear about the significant revenues. There's only 2 states that have even made enough money that has been 1% of their state budget. A lot of them has been less than 0.01%. California had a $100 million bailout in July to their legal market because the black market was undercutting them. So when you hear, oh, you make all this money, in Colorado, for every tax dollar that comes in, $4.50 goes out to mitigate the problems. So don't let people think, oh, this is about money. It's not about social justice. It's not about it's safer than. You'll hear that this is the solution to the opioid epidemic. And you know what? The cannabis industry continues to say that. And in states that have recreationally legalized, opioid deaths go up. There is so much studies around it. Initially, there was one study that came out that was kind of equating that the opioid issue might be diminishing. But as they continue to follow it, every place that they've recreationally legalized, the opioid use went up. People don't quit using opioids if they're addicted and say, yeah, I'm just going to go to marijuana. It doesn't happen like that. They kind of coexist. So that's not a reason. And the last one is people say, well, it's just for adults. So this is what happens, and this is why I'm speaking today. In November of 2023, next November, we're going to see a ballot initiative on this issue, okay? And this is why I'm speaking to churches, because as long as these sound bites come out from the cannabis industry and people do not understand this issue, I think the conservative Christian majority sits quiet. And sometimes we don't have a voice, we don't talk to other people, and we might vote, but we need to understand in this particular issue, we will be outspent, I don't even know, $1,000, like they have billions of dollars. So we need people to understand this issue so we can talk to other people. So when they say, oh, but you'll make millions of dollars, and it's just for youth use, and it's for social justice, that we can say, you know, research does not support any of this, okay? Because at the end of the day, we need communities to say, hey, we don't want this. And we don't want this because if our young people have dispensaries in our communities, what it does, it decreases their perception of harm. And as soon as they view something as not harmful, there's a much greater chance that they will try it. So just simply by having a ballot initiative, having commercials, having advertisement about cannabis, it makes our young people think that this is safer than or this is okay. So this is kind of how I handle this issue. I don't even talk about adult use. I just say, can we agree that we do not want more drugs in our community? So that's kind of how I handle this particular topic. And I just need to give you another little information about marijuana because it's confusing, okay? In Ohio, we do have marijuana as medicine. If you're not familiar with that, I do feel there's potential, medical potential on CBD products. But when you get marijuana as medicine here in Ohio, this is how it works. Physicians are licensed to recommend marijuana, okay? It's for 21 conditions, so they can say, hey, I recommend this for you. The issue is they can't tell you what kind, what amount, what type, because that's illegal. So your doctor can't say CBD only, because CBD doesn't get you high, and that's where that medical promise is. So, and he can't say, you know, get CBD and not THC. So when you go in the dispensary, it's still marijuana. You know, you have these dried plants, you kind of pick out what you want. There are some CD products, but the person that's giving it to you is not a pharmacist, they're a bud tender. And they can recommend, hey, try this, this is really good. Well, my mom has horrible balance. She might benefit from some of that CBD, but my goodness, if she went in and had THC, it would not go well for her, okay? So just to help people understand, it's not the medicine that you think of as when you get to a pharmacy, but that's where we're at right now. The reason talking to churches, there's two things going on. There's a House bill right now called 261 that will come back into play in November, and that's to expand marijuana as medicine in here in Ohio. And this is the playbook that the cannabis industry has done in every single state that went recreationally legalized. They put in a medical program, and it's usually pretty well contained. And then you expand it, and then you flip it to recreational stores. So this expansion bill, it's called 261, increases marijuana potency to 90%. So if anyone does not know anything about marijuana, which you might not, Woodstock weed, marijuana in the 90s, the THC, what gets you high, was no more than 5%, probably more 2 to 4%. Marijuana today, if you just had a plant, you were smoking a joint, like 21%. When you get those products like gummy bears and the vapes that I'm talking about that the kids are using, those THC levels go up to about 35%. And then the products continue to change forms. And you know what? I'll have you go ahead and do a couple scrapes. Okay, go ahead, one more. Go ahead, one more. Oh, one more. Go ahead. I'm sorry, right here. So marijuana in the past, that joint, that could have been that 2 to 4%. Those little funky yellow things, those can go into the 90% THC. And then those vaping ones are the ones the kids are using. So what you need to know is when adults feel like, oh, I knew people that smoke weed, they were okay, you know, I might have smoked weed when I was in high school, not a big deal. The deal is it's not the same drug anymore. So our marijuana expansion bill is to take marijuana to 90% as medicine. Now the interesting thing is you can do research all day long, and I would encourage y'all to do it. You will not see medical efficacy over, and it's really about 10 to 12%. Some states will say 15%. Ohio was 70%, and now we want to increase it to 90%. There's no medical benefit at that point. So they're ramping us up to flip over. So this medical bill that the Government Oversight Committee is looking at is to expand THC to 90%, to allow social media advertising, which then decreases harm for our young people. It is to move the oversight of our medical program from the Board of Pharmacy to the Department of Commerce. So I'm not sure why the Commerce Department would be running our medical program other than that we're getting ready to flip. And it also allows physicians to recommend for any condition. Got a toenail and your doctor thinks it's okay. So that's the one thing that's going on, and it's very interesting because our legislature says we are not for recreational, but they're considering this bill. And it's almost like they're saying, yeah, we're not going to vote for recreational, but they're kind of considering this. So what happens if this bill goes in, 261, it makes it very easy for us to lose a ballot initiative next November. So why I'm speaking today is I want you to know, I would love to give more information about this issue. I'd love to speak anywhere. I want people to have conversations with other people. I want you to get information. I would love if you contact our legislature. Brett Hildyard probably needs more people to reach out and say, hey, this is not what we want for our community. Senator Hottinger is very aware of this issue as well. He definitely will oppose this. But all that information, just to let you know, is God's people. Yes. As God's people, we do need to take action because we have hurting people, we have addicted person struggling with addiction, and it impacts every part of our community. It absolutely does. So when you're loving on people, substances is not what we want for anybody. It ends up binding people up, holding them back. Just a whole bunch of junk comes with that. So if we can help people understand, we love you with the love of Christ. And if you are struggling with addiction, you know, we're going to walk alongside you, but we also want to protect people from going down that path. And the more drugs we have in the community, the more problems we're going to have. I know I probably went on more than I should, but did anyone have any questions on that? Oh, go ahead, real quick. I'm sorry, Pastor Jimmy, is that right? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. That's what I kind of missed something. House bill,